Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the April 17th, 2023 School Board Work Session. First on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance by Ms. Tyra Pilgrim.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Pilgrim. I have failed to recognize our neighbors in Reedyville, so would like to think of them tonight, those that have lost their homes and their businesses in the tornado. So if everybody will give us a moment of silence, please. Thank you so much. Hello, Dr. Sullivan. Welcome, everybody. We will start with our consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions?
I would like to call out one. I'm not going to say the name of the spot, but there's a spot for your community use of facilities. Ms. Sharp and I have looked at that group because its name can maybe think other things. We have looked at the name of that group to make sure it was a honorary title of the group we wanted using our schools, and we appreciate the mentorship they will provide to young females. Yes. Yes. A little strange.
I will not be volunteering to work with them. Just y'all relax.
Only other thing I would call out is that you are going to start seeing quite a few on the school salary supplements. We are finishing up 22-23, and you have a lot of spring practices or spring practice and summer tryouts who begin the first day that school year ends. So you're going to see a mixture of some of the same names of people that are finishing up the 22-23 school year, and also a large number of people coming up that will be in place for next school year so we can start. So when you see some of these same names over the next couple meetings on school salary supplements, it's 2 different years.
Any questions or anything needs to be pulled out of the consent agenda? No visitors tonight?
And tonight, quite a few more.
Recognition tomorrow night.
Yep, tomorrow night we'll recognize our Distinguished Leader Graduate Award. Colonel Rector started that last year, and it's an amazing time for us to be able to recognize some of our distinguished leaders.
Awesome. Number 8.
All right, so number 8, approval of salary study scale for 23-24. So that goes with board goal number 3. It is on tab 2 of recruit and retain. So we entertained, so this, just to give a little bit of background, this actually started December 2nd of 2021. So our former board and director of school looked at having a salary review committee. We met several times at the end of 21 through April 22. Some suggestions were put through, some were not. Some members of this board who were on the board will remember that you had to be given a copy from another board member of what some of the items were that were actually on that salary schedule because the recommendations didn't actually make it formally to the board. So we discussed having a third party at that point. July 2022, just want to give a little bit of background. So I moved into this role July 1st. We had several staff members who asked, what do I make? And so I went, like a director of schools would, to our finance director and said, where do I find a salary study or a salary for these people? And largely it came down to if you were certified, you had a salary. If you were classified, then you had a salary. If you were in several other positions, especially in our central office, there was no salary schedule for you. As the director of schools and in state law, it clearly says I'm supposed to develop a salary schedule and then the board is supposed to approve it. So we embarked upon this journey with Evergreen Solution. I contacted TSBA for advice on that as well. On August 18th, our board approved the contract with Evergreen Solutions. So there's 6 or 7 tasks on that. On one of the tasks, it talks about conducting a comprehensive preliminary evaluation of the existing compensation plans for RCS. On To the activities for task 2.0, it says teacher steps capping at years 21. We've discussed that. Adding CO positions into the pay plan, and then reviewing some of our classified mobility, because that's been a huge one. They had task 5, which was develop strategic positioning recommendations, activity 5.2, using market and comprehensive data review to determine a proper pay scale, including number of grades and ranges, and then produce a revised or new pay scale that best meets the needs of the board. So that is kind of the background. Our board then on December 15th added extra scopes of work. We did a job assessment tool to all of our employees that chose to complete it. It didn't apply to everyone because it talked about a lot of things that necessarily didn't apply to a certified teacher. But then the Evergreen took that information and developed a hierarchy of classifications for us. We've gone from potentially 12 different classifications on our salary scale to 21 of them are R100 to R121, so actually 22 different classifications. So just a couple quick notes on those. One, our classified salary. So we looked at a new 7 steps to 26 steps, and these are all posted online. They're huge, huge, huge files. A new classification of grades. So right now you can look in our classification and we have custodians by themselves on a scale. They would actually move to a new scale with educational assistants, ISS educational assistants, bus EAs, for example. SPED EAs have their own step, so that's an area that we targeted. I think there are 102, and that included an increase from the base of $13 and I believe 93 cents to move into $15.40 with a 5% raise on top of that, moves the beginning custodial salary to $16.17. For certified, we went from proposed 21 to 26 steps. It removed a couple grandfather options. About a decade ago, there was a grandfather removal so that if someone had a master's plus 45 or a doctorate degree and a certified teacher, then if they moved into the district, they would no longer get that supplement. So we're looking at removing that, so paying people for the degrees that they've earned. And then looked overall, our indices pretty much stayed the same. The only index that we are looking to propose, the main one, is our assistant superintendent. That came in. Their suggestion of an index was 1.65. That's not something that we felt comfortable with. So high school principals are at a 1.4. We are proposing 1.41, which is 1/100th of a point above a high school principal for a couple reasons. One, our assistant superintendents evaluate our principals. Two, there needs to be some type of reason for a high school principal to want to move to a central office position. It needs to be a move forward, and it's not. So that's just kind of a little bit of an estimate of kind of where we are. We looked at the first one. We paid $112,500 for our salary study. That came out of ESSER recruit and retain funds.
Comments or questions?
I'd like to say something. I first want to say that I am very appreciative of the enormous effort and time that was spent on this recently completed salary study. I'm excited about some of the much-needed changes that we needed to take care of and that we're going to be implementing those. And I also have some questions. Before I ask the questions, I'm going to address some of the accusations that are probably going to come my way as a result of them. People are going to say that I'm against raises. They will say that I am singling out central office staff, wanting to pick and choose who gets a raise. People will say that I don't appreciate central office staff or the work they do simply because I'm asking questions. People will say that I don't want to retain the best in Rutherford County or that it's not my job to be questioning the study or Dr. Sullivan's recommendations. None of those things are true. I'm excited to offer much-needed raises to our teachers and support staff. I appreciate the effort and the hard work of all of the staff in Rutherford County and all they do every day, including our central office staff. I want us to retain our amazing staff and have discussed merit-based programs with Dr. Sullivan for that very reason. My questions regarding the salary study would be, why would we increase a salary that is already at an appropriate salary level? How did we end up with overall teachers getting a less percentage of a raise than central office and administrative staff? Why can't we get the requested average salaries of those positions from the salary study? Should a principal who is responsible for managing a large facility, thousands of students, a full staff, make less than an assistant superintendent? Is it prudent to give some of the higher percentage raises all at one time? For instance, if we have a position that requires a 60% increase to be where it should be, is it possible to look at doing 30% this year, 30% the following year? Why can't we discuss which salaries require adjusting due to salary study results showing the need because it's inadequate versus inflating all salaries unnecessarily? This is not personal. These questions are valid. And I would say to you that not only is it my job to ask questions, but it's my duty as a board member to ask these questions and make sure I understand what I'm being asked to vote for. We're operating in some really challenging times right now. We are facing an imminent recession, tax increases due to presenting the commission with the highest dollar amount the board has ever asked for with the 3 school additions, not to mention the funding we're going to need for the elementary school once the Beatty property purchase is complete. We have $200 million in deferred maintenance, unacceptable levels of overcrowding, students receiving instruction in closets that have been converted to classrooms. We can't fully fund growth requests from our principals and administration. We need more SROs, more nurses. So yes, I'm asking questions, and I'm just trying to understand why we're spending the money the way we are, because I believe every dollar matters. The salary study was presented as a mechanism, as I understood it, to evaluate, address, and correct the salaries that were not adequate so that we could be comparable to districts close in our size, not to inflate every single salary regardless of whether there was a need or not. On March 9th and 10th of this year, we attended a board retreat where we discussed the salary study, the salaries of the teachers, the EAs, the maintenance staff. There was no discussion in detail of the administration and central office staff salaries, just the hierarchical changes that were presented. I attempted to get this information to help answer some of these questions by requesting a meeting. On Monday, March 13th, I met with Dr. Sullivan and Mr. Runyon, where I requested a spreadsheet with the admin staff positions, current pay rate, average pay rate, and the proposed new pay rate, due to those things not being covered during our retreat. I then asked again for that same information on March 23rd, April 4th, April 6th, April 10th, and April 12th, as I had not yet received it. I received the data this past Friday night, still not fully complete. And I say all of that to say it's critical that we all play a part in the success of our county, not just the county commission. Would it be great to give every single person a raise, whether the salary study showed we need it or not? Absolutely. The question is, should we? So I would like to see us move forward with the teachers, the EA staff, the maintenance, the cafeteria workers, and I would like to see us table the central office administration salary discussion just till the next meeting so that we can talk about and have discussion and answer some of those questions.
Any other comments? Sure.
So just when we're looking at central office, we have, let me pull up the scale. What range, Mr. Roney, if you're looking at are you thinking R1? I'm trying to find, so if we're just going to table one group, if we're looking to table that, where would we look, where does it break off for where central office to school level administrative? Is it R106?
It's closer to R108.
Okay. So here in that, we would say suggest him going ahead with R100 through R107. Is that what I'm hearing?
I would guess if that, I mean, I'd have to look at them, but I just think it's important that we can discuss those and answer those when constituents ask us. I want to be able to explain it if that's the route that we're going to go. And unfortunately, there hasn't been enough time to address all of these questions because the information came in so late, so.
I guess my question is, did we not follow what the third party gave us as far as recommendations on these salaries, or?
Yes, for all placements, yes, they gave us a classification placement on a R100 through 121 scale.
Is that what an ask, that was part of the scope? To look at every single, that was my understanding. My understanding it was that part of the scope when they came here in the third party was that they were going to look at every single category within the position to determine where it landed, to be competitive. That's what was explained, and as I understood it, the day that they came to revise the scope, and we added that extra. And on top of that, the reorganizational chart that for the district of our size to see if we've the right positions or if there was any gaps that needed to be done. My understanding that day, we make those modifications to look at all of the salaries and the organizational chart that we all voted for that day. That was part of the scope?
It was, but just like I did on August 18th and on December 15th, my job is to take what the motions of the board are and carry it out, which is exactly what I've done in this
Right, so
situation, so I'm fine with whatever we move forward with.
Right, so we unanimously voted to look at every single salary, correct?
And looking at the moments, yes, and looking at the way the scope was looked at.
So we're waiting till right now to make a decision who gets the pay increases or not, when we voted unanimously to look at every single one of these. This is what I don't understand. I understand your questions. I understand that you want to look at these things. But when we're coming together as a board and we've got third parties giving us consultation and we're talking about scope of work, if they were concerns, those concerns should be brought then, not after all this work has been done, because we have been talking about these studies the whole entire time and no one has really raised any single concern about who's getting a pay increase and who's not. And now we're looking very deeply concerned about the central office, and the percentages are all over the place. And I don't feel comfortable telling someone, you deserve it, you do not deserve it, when we had agreed unanimously as a board that we were going to do this. I understand we need to save the county money and we need to do a due diligence, but when we're coming to talk about these things, it's imperative that we know as a board what we're asking and what deliverables are we're getting. Because if we've got questions, those questions need to be answered at that moment and at that given time. Because now we've told all our staff that we were going to be looking at this pay study and the structure and the whole entire thing, and now we're deciding who gets it and who does not.
I believe that the salary study was to address inadequate salaries. I don't think that that's ever changed. When I was voting for the salary study, that was my understanding of what we were doing. And when we were at the retreat, that was at the end of the week. I requested this information on Monday. So I don't understand where you think there was this huge delay. It was 2 days.
I'm not saying there's a huge delay. I think the point I'm making is that this is why it's important that we ask specifically the questions of what deliverables we're getting, so that when we're getting ready to vote, we know what we're voting for, and not sit back and say, I didn't understand what we were getting, because we all talked about this and we were doing this unanimously. That's what the point I'm trying to make.
Well,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
you go ahead.
Caleb, you go ahead. I might have something to say.
Yeah,
about you gotta say, so go ahead.
Well, I would just say, obviously, I think this is very important. Teachers, we feel like we want our teachers to be competitive. We have a lot of vacancies, so that's very important. The EAs, we've talked about that. Custodial positions, we've talked about all these things. I think where you look at a little bit different, when those are kind of done in groups, and those decisions are made over like a group wide. Whereas the admin central office, those are more specifically tailored positions. And as I understood the salary study, and I think there was even some mention of this, that we were competitive in some areas we weren't. And the areas that we are competitive in, I mean, I got to say that I am more in line with Katie here, that if we are competitive, I think that that's fair. I think that it's not really the idea, never my understanding that we were going to give across-the-board raises regardless. Now, if it's earned, if it's deserved, if it helps us get into a better competitive position, then maybe, I'm definitely worth considering those items. The last thing that I would add is that, again, and I think Ms. Rosales kind of brought attention to that as well, that there was an understanding that we were looking at each and every position and getting a comparable for that position. And so as I would look at that, how the information I thought would be received, which we could, another thing I would like to quickly mention is we were asked to not reach out to RSP directly, but to come through, so we had a source to gather information, so there was some reliance on that source. But I'll say this, that as far as comparables, if you're comparing it, I understand we're comparing it to districts our size. If we have, we're looking, I'm just going to take something out of thin air, but transportation, let's say transportation, and we have 3 individuals, which I don't know how many we have in transportation, to be honest, but let's just say we have 3 individuals in our transportation department. There's a similar size district. They're running similar size routes with similar size amount of buses, roughly, not exact, but similar, and they have 6 positions is what it's taken for them. Then I think you can make an argument that those 3 that we have in there deserve a little bit higher bump to take, because they're taking a little bit more workload, and it's actually saving the county money to pay them more for the amount of work that they're carrying on. Do we have those comparables? I think we asked for them. I don't think that we received them. That, I think, is probably a failure of RSP. But
Can I hit real quick? That's not the company. It's Evergreen Solutions.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I keep saying
Yes.
RSP.
Yeah.
Forgive me, RSP, wherever you're at. Evergreen. But anyways, that's kind of where I landed with that. And, man, I'm going to have to apologize to them directly.
We got a lot of work to do with on zoning. So let's-
But I think generally that's where, if you're looking at a job in a different area, and it's similar size or whatever, you want to get paid similar to what that comparable is, that's similar to where you're at, and the cost of living is similar. You want to look at those items. That's what I thought this massive salary study was going to do. And I'm not sure that I have the confidence that that's where we're at just yet. But I certainly think that we are not even talking about educators, EAs, custodians, and certain individuals.
It was my understanding when they first came in, they basically, one of the first ones they said was, we don't know how you're doing it with the staff you've got. We're not bloated. And I would like to know, when is the last time, because we've been pretty lean and mean since I got on the board in 2020. We were in the middle of COVID. We were not spending anything. I don't know that anybody got any raises till this last round. When's the last time central office got any raises? Because they were all here through COVID too.
Central office would get the same raise that if you did a 4% across the board or 5%, it was the same. But what this was looking at was trying to look at, and you're exactly right, we're looking at people. I knew this would bring out conversations. We are trying to attempt to fix a scale that has not existed for decades. It hasn't. There has been no scale for decades, right, wrong, or indifferent, for our salaried people in central office that are not on a teacher scale. Instruction department's largely on a teacher scale. That's pretty easy. But pretty much this entire side of the building, if they are not an hourly employee, they are not on a scale right now. And I'm not comfortable continuing to ask and give them salaries that I don't have backing for why we're giving them. I mean, just from a director of schools, that puts me in a liable standpoint of why am I choosing to give that person a salary? So,
Yeah, I've been on this board for several years, and I can say that a lot of times we've had to come back and balance our budget on the back of our employees, and that's wrong. We've done that numerous times. And and there is something you can look at. Go and look at how many admins we have to per student ratio. We will outperform any other county our size. What we rank 117 in the state as far as expenditures for students, cost per student.
110s,
The
yes.
reason why we do that is because we have so many employees here in the central office busting their butts every day, going up and beyond their call of duty. We need to reward those people if we have an opportunity to reward them. And right now is a chance for us to do that.
I agree,
We've got an
Mr.
opportunity to
Young.
do it without even raising taxes.
That's right. I think if we have some salaries that are finally being raised, it's because we haven't been paying you enough to start with. And I was here. I know what I'm talking about. These people deserve this raise, and I don't want to separate out anybody. We are all Rutherford County schools. I don't care if you're teaching the third grade. I don't care if you're answering the phone. We are Rutherford County schools, and this salary schedule needs to go through as is.
If we're going to save taxpayers' dollars, I think that the funding should be our positions. We get paid for every single meeting. We get reimbursements for all these trips. If we're going to defund something, it should be our salaries and change it to volunteer. So if we're going to say that we need to save money, I would like to make an amendment to where we look into making our positions a volunteer pay. Because I will rather give that up.
It's
than
law
give it to-
that we have to be
Some
paid.
people don't even get anything.
It's law, it's our county law.
There are some districts that do not get anything.
That is not their law in their county.
I would just like to summarize by simply saying, I'm asking for discussion. That was it. I'm asking for some questions to be answered. Nobody sat up here and said there aren't people that don't deserve more money. And I told you all at the beginning of this that that's what I was going to be accused of, and here we are. It is not what I said. What I said is, and this was said by our superintendent, that we do have salaries that are adequate. It is easy to spend the money when it is not coming out of your pocket. I'm sorry, I think
Is
it's
it
worth the
coming out of
discussion.
yours?
It is, I'm a taxpayer.
No, ma'am, it's
So
coming
are you.
from TISA. It's not coming from the county.
Sheila, so you want to take all the TISA funds and let's just, you get money, you get money, you get money, you get money.
I want to
all
pay
the
what's
stuff we
fair,
have to
Ms.
do.
Darby, that's all.
So
I'm
do
asking.
I. It's worth
Okay,
a
ladies.
discussion.
Ladies, Dr. Sullivan.
Well,
we-
it's going to be really hard.
Excuse me,
Go ahead.
Dr. Sullivan, our employees are still going to receive a step raise as well. Is that correct?
Which employees?
All of our employees will receive a step raise.
If we go with our current schedule, no, they will not, because we have classified staff, they wait 5 years, up to
That's why
5
we're,
years.
that's why we're starting, and we're not talking about EAs, we're not questioning EAs, we're not talking about those that are out in the field. And that was one of the reasons, my understanding, that we did the salary study. So we can put in place where, just like a private business, every year they're going to get a raise.
If you're talking about our central office, I need a scale to put them on, to put them in a step first. I have no scale, so I don't really care what the scale is. I need a scale to place employees on. I would love to tell you every one of our central office staff members is going to be here July 1st. They're not. And when a new employee comes in, I need somewhere to place them.
Aside from that scale, will everyone get a step raise?
If certified and classified are addressed, yes.
I have another question. Was this not going to tell us a little bit about the amount of positions that are in certain departments? Was that on there?
Yes, and I believe so. I looked at the board.
I just wonder how we're faring in that.
Yeah. So I know that we have those. If you give me just a minute to pull that
Oh,
up.
that's okay.
Because they did, when I went back and looked at the December 15th minutes, because I think when we looked at it, we both thought something different. So it says, December 15th, task, so an additional scope of work, collect staffing level data from up to 10 peer districts to determine comparable level of staffing across all central office departments and support positions. And so I was looking at that from waiting to have staffing salaries as well, but the way that reads, it is truly to determine comparable level of staffing. And so give me just a second to pull up all of her information.
But I know the file you're going to pull
Yep.
up here, but it didn't pull up each department. I guess that's where I kind of misunderstood, that it was going to give us, I'm going to go back to my transportation example. It's going to give us, hey, comparable districts, they have 6 people, you guys have 3, y'all need to step it up.
They only did leadership team, they did executive, instructional executive operations. That's how they broke it down.
Rosales?
I'll think about it.
Anyone else? Number 9.
All right,
Funding is not going to add more to the budget, correct? the budget that we're running on this school year, we've told the county commissioners we're not going to be asking any more money. So the budget is going to stay the same, correct?
Do you want to go back to number 9?
Yes, please.
Or do you want to go back to number 8? Sorry.
Number 8, please.
Yes. All right, so number 8, with Mr. Runyon and I, what we are basing off, we have told the county commission in good faith that we will not be asking for anything above local maintenance of effort, which is the bare minimum they're required to do by law.
So this is not going to be going before the county commissioners, and the funding that we're looking at is coming from the TISA funding that they've been telling us about for the past 2 years.
So without getting too nuanced, yes, this goes before the county commission. They don't approve our salary. They do not have line item veto power. The county school system has sued the county commission before. We have a good relationship as shown by our support last Thursday. So I don't want to go down that road. However, when you were looking at it from, they could send the budget back to us. The only thing they could send the budget back to us is ask us to decrease our funding, which we can't decrease because we are only asking for the legal minimum. So we would probably send back the exact same amount.
And the deliverable is what we asked from the scope. So they delivered what we paid them to do.
They were a couple days late on the classified, but yes.
But yes, but they
Yes.
delivered how we
Yes.
asked and how we wanted. So this way that they're asking, is it a new ask? How they're wanting to do it with comparables, whatever.
It is what I had hoped as well, but that's not the way that I see it written.
But it's not,
Because they don't present as as far as our scope of work and our RFP, we use Clarksville Montgomery's RFP, if I'm remembering correctly. It's on the August 18th, who we used. We used their RFP and just piggybacked off of that. During that RFP, we didn't ask as part of what is the format you're going to send it back to us. It was just the deliverables that we asked for.
is that a contract that you signed with the chair or just you that signed
It
this?
would have been full board approval.
Full board approval?
I think the issue is clarity in the line item. So for instance, the one he just read about the 10, I think the majority assumption, and as Dr. Sullivan just mentioned himself, was that they were going to give us a lot more detail than what they actually ended up giving us, which was a very thin Excel sheet on this particular item of our comparables.
Yeah, and I do want to, so that is one, the salary study won't mind. We mentioned this with Joanne. So as far as the salary study, they went above and beyond, in my opinion, what we paid them because we're on a DOS-based payment system. So that is part of our issue, is their calculations having to use a DOS-based system. I mean, that 100% was part of the issue that took extra time. As far as this aspect of it, they ran into into problems with open records requests. So Tennessee state law, we contracted with a Florida company. So for state law in Tennessee, you have to have a Tennessee driver's license. And so we had to use our own person to do the public records request. And so when that's coming from a Rutherford County employee for an open records request, we didn't get all the information we needed. No.
Right, because of our system being so.
Number 9.
All right, so number 9, so I appreciate Ms. Darby actually brought this suggestion, so change of the 23-24 calendar. Request to use additional stockpile day for the 23-24 school year to make January 5th, 2024 an administrative day focused on school safety. So to hit on that a little bit, as Ms. Sharp and Ms. Darby had that suggestion, we had a school safety day right after spring break that allowed us to readdress school safety from a district perspective. In part of the salary that we're looking at this year, all EAs, classified staff, anytime a teacher is there, they're paid to be there as well. That is a big change because in the past, classified staff were not at school. And so when you talk about, and now that we've already done the day, we can talk about it publicly, we did that day to be able to address classified staff and safety because everybody needed to be trained the same way. We, on our current salary, goodness gracious, sorry, that's just part of the day. On our current calendar, we have 13 snow days. We have requested to use 4 of stockpile days. That brings us down to 9. This would ask for an additional one, so that would bring us to 8. We always have the option, if something happens and we have a snowstorm in December and we realize we need that extra day, we can always take a couple back in March and January. We are currently scheduled to start school on a Friday, January 5th. I'm not sure what attendance is going to be like for students on Friday, January 5th. So does a couple things here.
I think overwhelmingly, the feedback that the board got for us to have that day for the staff to exhale and get everyone together was very, very useful. And I think having one at the beginning of the school, and then we'll have one again, was it right before fall, Christmas break?
Yeah, right
No,
after.
it was the first of the year.
Yes.
First of the year. So when we have new employees that leave in December and new employees that come on in December, we'll be able to include those in those meetings. So I think it was a great idea. Number 10.
All right, number 10 is the 22-23 tenure recommendation. So this aligns with Tennessee Code annotated 495-503. So the following teachers meet the criteria for tenure in accordance with new tenure law. It's not necessarily new, it's several years old now, but we still call it the new tenure law because there was an old tenure law. Holds a valid Tennessee teaching license, has served Rutherford County Schools for 5 years or 45 months minimum within a 7-year period, the last two in a regular, not interim position. Has demonstrated an overall performance of above expectations or significantly above expectations on the team evaluation during the last 2 consecutive years of the 5-year period. And to bring that forward, that is a level 4 or 5 on the 5-point scale. That includes observations, testing data, and then achievement data as well. And then, or if they have held tenure under the previous guidelines and returned to Rutherford County Schools, meeting the 2-year probationary period and tenure is reactivated. So there are, I added these earlier, 65 elementary teachers. There are, and I could be off a number too, but this is what I counted. 152 middle school and high school teachers that are eligible for tenure. So congratulations to all of those individuals. That's a lot. Yep. Other part I'll call out that this is based on last year's testing data, and you can see when we get the final files for last year's testing data, and we're just asking for you to approve it in April. So,
For new board members, this is the first tenure list that we've had, correct?
we had a small one last year, didn't we? Much smaller last year. Yeah, because we didn't test for several years, so.
And the star by their name means that they
They've-
left the district
and came back. Yep.
Okay.
And they have to do 2 years to get it back.
Dr. Anthony, while we're on tenure,
Yes, ma'am.
have we thought any more about allowing those level 4 and 5 teachers that are going to be moving in here from another district to keep their tenure?
The director of schools has that authority to make that decision.
Okay.
And some
Dr. Sullivan?
do it and some do not.
I think we talked about that.
I would like that in policy.
Okay,
And my suggestion is a 2-year recommendation. So
2 year, okay.
not just you move in and you automatically get it. I would like.
Oh, no, well,
2
they
years
didn't even
like
give it
somebody
back to
coming back.
you, so, I mean,
Yes.
don't you have to do a probationary
2
period?
years.
But
I
at
would like
least
the 2 years.
reinstate it
Yes.
if they're a level 4 or 5 teacher coming from another system after they've been with us a couple of years or whatever.
But I
I
would
just
want
think
that-
that's a good recruitment tool.
It's a good recruitment. I would want that in policy first.
Well, someone,
I'd say we got a policy committee coming up.
do we have enough time to get that?
We do.
It's Monday, okay.
We can. Our legal department led by James Evans, will you add that to our policy? Teacher tenure from other,
Only if you'll put that I'm the legal department in the minutes, please.
yes.
I can see the coffee mugs now. Number 11.
Number 11, we tabled at the last meeting, so this is the ancillary resolution, whereas the Board of Education desires to continue providing voluntary plans for the employees of Rutherford County Schools for the calendar year 2024, and whereas the Standard and MetLife have been identified as the preferred providers for the voluntary plan, specifically group life, voluntary life, short-term disability, long-term disability, cancer, accident, and critical illness. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education approves staying with the Standard and MetLife for their respective voluntary plans for the calendar year of 2024 with the same benefits and rates. And be it further resolved, the county government will administer their portion of the plans, and the Board of Education will administer their portion of the plans. So what does that mean? It just means we're going to stay with the county for 1 more year for our ancillary products with our current same rates. So it's a win-win for both.
Any questions? You did good with the resolutions. Those are so hard to read.
Yeah, I don't like the now, therefore. I can't do therefore. As long as the word continuity is not in there, I'm fine.
Number 12.
Legal tab 3, so you have 3 out-of-county transfers. James, do you have those by chance? You can give them out, that's fine. You can give them out later when we're done, because they have the digital files as well, I believe. So we have 3, so out-of-county 3. Number 1, the board has been requested to admit a transfer student from another school system under discipline. Student was suspended for 10 days for possession of THC. According to policy 6.318, the board may deny admission of any student except those in state custody when a student transfers from another school system while under suspension or expulsion. My recommendation is to admit and place in the alternative school.
Number 2.
Number 2, board's been requested to admit a transfer student from another school system under discipline. The student was remanded to alternative school for numerous threats of physical harm and intimidation directed at teachers and school staff. According to policy 6.318, the board may deny admission of any student when a student transfers from another school system while under suspension or expulsion. And director of school's recommendation is to deny admission for this one.
Comments or questions? Number 3.
And number 3, board's been requested to admit a transfer student from another school system under discipline. The student was expelled for possession of a weapon other than a firearm. According to policy 6.318, the board may deny admission of any student except those in state custody when a student transfers from another school system while under suspension or expulsion, and my recommendation is to deny admission for this one.
Roman number 2.
Oh, I didn't even see that one, sorry. Annual policy review. So these are the policies that have not been reviewed and changed in the last calendar year, and so to be reviewed. Ms. Darby and I spoke earlier. There's one that I know we want to pull out, which is controversial materials. It is policy 4.801. That one has not been reviewed that I can see from 115, I think it's 09, I think 2009. That one is not talking about library books or instructional materials. It is saying a parent may request that a student not required to read a book, use certain materials, or participate in an activity. If the request to the teacher is denied, then a written request may be submitted on the appropriate form to the principal, and I need to find what that form is. So that's just being completely transparent what that form looks like. Kelly, do you have any idea what that form is? Nope. James, do you have any idea what that form could be? 4.801.
I mean, we do have the form online that parents that want to have.
I don't think we have one for this, to where if there's like a book that a parent doesn't want somebody to read, it says the director of schools will provide a form to the principal, so I need to make a form. So,
I think we were going to pull 4.502 just to look at it because we haven't really dealt with it because of COVID, so.
4.502 is parent-family involvement. That was implemented in 2019. It looks like a model TSBA policy that looks like it got implemented in June about parent involvement, and then COVID hit in that school year, so.
One addition on that controversial materials, I don't know, perhaps we need to look at combining those with the prohibitive concepts, because right now it's being circumvented by that form. So every complaint or request to be removed from any discussion, even over, approved curriculum, is sent via that form or just directly to a principal. So, I mean, probably just streamlining that process to make that more clear of what the difference might be. I just wanted to clarify that people are still able to voice concerns to the proper channels, and we're handling those.
Good point. Okay.
Maybe we just combine them together.
Yep.
Because this was obviously before
Absolutely.
the other.
Yes.
So Dr. Sullivan, for the board notes on this, for the policy meeting Monday, you want to add, if I'm understanding correctly, 4.502 and 4.801.
Yes, and teacher tenure from other districts.
Can we make a note to pull, I guess, whatever the policy is on the prohibited concept or whatever it was you were talking about? Yeah, so we can look at all of them and see.
Okay. Dr. Sullivan and I spoke when we reviewed the agenda. TSBA recommends these annual reviews go in our consent agenda, and as well, like we're pulling them out now, we can vote for them all together, and Dr. Sullivan doesn't have to read all the numbers, but we can always pull them out and put them on the regular agenda, if everybody's okay with that.
Yeah.
Going forward.
I greatly appreciate that.
Number 13.
All right, number 13, so some of these are new, so I know that we need to we've discussed a property. We have not discussed where the location was. Board members have had an opportunity to look at that, and we could still look at that. So 13 is purchase of Church Street property. Rutherford County Board of Education would like to enter into agreement for the purchase and sale of a property located at 814 South Church Street, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, subject to a 90-day inspection period. Mr. Reed, do you want to add where we are so that there are tenants in that building? Usually when you were looking to purchase a building, tenants want to stay. We would not want tenants to stay because we would want to use it for a school. So there's some nuances. Turn it over to you.
For school purposes, Mr. Lee can get in there and see what any kind of renovation costs would be and be able to bring that back to the board. Typically, you would have an inspection period, and what we're proposing here is a 90-day inspection period for which the school board will do all its due diligence with respect to the property, and it will come back to you again after you have a full understanding of what the cost will be to renovate the site, so you can determine then whether you want to pull the trigger and proceed with the purchase of the property. So this is being presented to you just from a timing standpoint to see if we can, if the board is inclined to go ahead and do this and look at the property, you can get it under contract, and then we would have a 90-day inspection period to do our due diligence on the property.
Are we gonna have an appraisal?
You can get an appraisal done if the board, that's what the board chooses to do.
And as part of the inspection, are they gonna have the asbestos in there as well as the inspection?
That type of testing will be done as well to make sure the building does not have asbestos or other kind of contaminants in the building.
What other inspections are they gonna be doing besides that?
Well, I think we do a general engineering study, just check out the engineering frame of the building, make sure it looks to be suitable, and know there's structural problems with the building. You might have a roof inspection done, you might have HVAC inspected to make sure everything's okay with the HVAC system. And the general renovation costs will be, there will be some modifications of the building that will be required, and you want to get some cost estimates for the renovations.
Can we also get the inspection about the flooding as well?
You would check out, of course, a portion of the building is in the floodplain.
Right.
It has flooded before that we talked about. I think it's been discussed that the price that you may be releasing the building for is such a price that may be worthwhile to buy despite the issues with respect to the occasional flooding where it's happened before. Mr. Lee's looked at it, and there are things that can be done to probably mitigate against any kind of further flooding risk on the property. So there are some things to be done to mitigate against flooding risks.
Okay, that'd be great if we can get that disclosed as well.
Yeah. All that will be done within the 90 days. If the board decides to move forward with it, we bring that back to the board, and you would have another chance to vote up and down whether you want to proceed with the purchase of the property.
And then the other thing is that the tenants that aren't there, if we can get the contracts of when they're.
We would get copies of the existing leases and look at those and see what situation is with the leases.
Yeah, wouldn't it be contingent upon us being able to terminate the contracts or work out something with them?
Would have to be able to work out something on the leases, yes.
Dr. Sullivan actually has a couple ideas on that, so if we do face that, we've got some options.
Yes, and some of the tenants may be allowed to stay for a while, so.
And the intent of this building is for a third alternative school, plus I think there going to be more space for other ideas.
Yes, so that is the #1 goal. And so I will tell you, Trey and I talked about this. The goal is to try to be in that building by September 1st. Because students would be in that building, that may not be a realistic timeline because we're going to have to go through state because we're having students as an occupied site. Other part it is in the city limits, and I will leave it at that. So we're going to have some conversations there for renovation planning, construction, renovation. We've made a lot of progress, but that is our overall goal. Is step 1 is alternative school, renovate so we can get that done, look to see what our other needs are. But step 1 is alternative school. That is our #1 need for that.
And if we weren't able to get it done in September, do we have to then wait till?
No.
January.
As soon as it's ready, we can start?
I would love to tell you that we won't have students that will be lining up, unfortunately, to fill those seats, but as soon as we can get access to the facility, in our budget and our growth positions that will be presented, I have a principal position allocated there.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bratton, for bringing that forward with the eagle eyes. Number 14?
I do feel kind of bad. The virtual school representative, somebody who brought it forward, I think they were hoping to be able to go there. Now they're not going to be able to go there, so I'm really sorry to the virtual school, but
But we're going to take care of them.
we are, absolutely. There is. Absolutely, yep. Maybe, yes. All right, so now we move into Financial Matters, tab 4. Number 1 goes right along with number 13. So Fund 144, General Purpose School Budget Amendment. I have briefed Health and Ed on this as well, that it's a possibility. Amendments to fund the purchase of the building and property 814 South Church Street. The property is listed with Matthews Real Estate Investment Services, has been negotiated to be acquired in the amount. Is this correct, Mr. Reed? I don't think that is the correct amount. Where are we in negotiations right now?
I think we're waiting for a counteroffer.
Are we waiting on a counteroffer right now? They are currently asking 1.3 million, and we are in negotiations and counteroffer, yes. Do we want to make this 1.3 just to be safe? We have it as $1 million. What do we want to make it?
You should be at 1.25 at least.
Okay.
It's going to be 1.25.
And this is the great part about being a public entity in the school system, having to do this out in the open.
What was the asking price originally?
The asking price was 1.3, and the counter that we countered at $1 million something, and then they've responded at $1,250,000, and we've proposed another number lower than what they've asked for.
Did you give them a time when they have to respond to that by?
I can call them, and we may be able to get a response by tomorrow, but we'll see. I'll check on it.
Yeah, I would like to do an appraisal for that building. Personally, I think it would be good for us and wise to do an appraisal.
Right. Okay. Yep. We can do an appraisal if that's what the board wants to do.
So at 1.25 million, this property will be funded by amending general purpose fund budget 141 by decreasing 3,900 unassigned fund balance and increasing capital outlay account of 76,100, 799 other capital outlay in the amount of $1 million. Now I know why we made that number. So we have money in what account is that? Do you have any idea that's just sitting there? It's a capital outlay account.
76,100.
So in 76,100, we have 75,000?
76,000.
That is just sitting and has never necessarily been touched. And so we were looking to amend that amount to cover what we had offered originally. That's where the $1 million came from. Apologize, it just came back to me when I looked over at Brian. I was like, I know where that number came from.
Number 2.
Number 2, so the board has already approved the purchase. This is just to move the money. So Fund 189 Building Projects Request. The request is to purchase the Beatty property, which is in 2 separate appraisals, one for 59.1 acres at 4.5, and the second for the house at 2.29 acres at $730,000. Total over 61.39 acres is $5.23 million. The funding for this property will come from Fund 189 Building Projects 99,100 715 land account. So I will have a update. I think we actually got it today from Michael. Can you read off the amount that's going to be in there? By chance, can you pull that up while I give some detail?
Are you speaking on the land
Yes.
portion of it?
So we in land, so there's a couple things in talking about land. Fund 189 is our capital projects, or building projects. And we have some money that has already been allocated for an elementary school site. If it has been allocated already, it has already been shared with the city. If we are moving funds to cover, because in that land account, we don't have a full 5.23 million. If we moved middle school or high school land purchase amounts into that, we would then have to share 14.46% of that amount with the city. So we have amended a couple projects, Plainview Elementary project, because it is complete. Roy Waldron, that has been complete for about 6 years, it's still sitting there. And something else, future elementary land that has already been split to get to this 5.23 million. You want to read the numbers for us?
Yes, so basically what we do not have obligated in there right now that's available for the elementary, that's money from the future elementary school is $1,416,100. For the elementary, from Plainview Elementary is $488,889. What was already in the land account was $3,325,011. And there's also a portion in there for a secondary
school, but we can also use that, which is $947,320 for a total of $6,177,320.
What was the last number you said?
$6,177,320.
Yeah, $6,177,320 that's the total amount in our land account.
Since Brian's got that, I'll have a printout for everybody tomorrow, just so you can see Fund 189, where it is, what's been funded, what hasn't been funded, all those things.
So now all that money's being.
All that money
and
is,
we'll move it.
yes.
And this is just voting on to fund.
It's just voting on to move the money. Technically, it probably doesn't have to require Health and Ed Budget and County Commission. We've always been transparent with this to tell them these are the money you've allocated to us, so we're being at the forefront of how we're moving the money around. Probably not required, but we just like to do that.
Number 15.
All right, so number 15, request for Smyrna Middle final change order. Wright Construction submitted change order number 1 for Smyrna Middle School renovation project. This will also be the final change order to close the project. Deductive change order of $9,382. Engineering Construction reviewed the request and approved. Recommended acceptance of the change order number 1 for a deduct of $9,382. Final contract amount will be $3,800,618.
Any questions?
When did we open that, Trey? Was that 2 years ago? Did it finally finish? Not soon enough, I know.
Less a few issues, but yes.
Okay.
Number 2.
Number 2 is a CMTA sample RCS contract. So sent that to the board yesterday. It's example contract for presentation and approval of the concept. We absolutely can push this to the next one, since I know that was 300 and something pages. But I wanted to give Trey an opportunity to be able to talk about kind of what they presented. We're just asking for approval of concept. So if we just want to approve the concept to start and get Health and Ed talking, in order to get County Commission Health and Ed budget, we need to see if this is an angle we want to go. It lines up with the item right below it, because we are looking at lights and LEDs and all those different types of things that we are needing to address in multiple spots. So Trey, what you want to go over CMTA?
I know one of the key things is everybody keeps asking for numbers. I want to see the numbers. The numbers are there. It is a range, because until this is completely approved and we can lock in with a bank, the numbers are fluid. So it's a range of 3.5% to 4.5% as far as the interest rate goes, and it spells out our payments over the life of the term. Then there's 290 pages of what they're going to do and how they're going to administer it and how we're going to watch and how the guarantees are. So if the concept is okay, we can start the process. If you don't want to, then we'll wait till the next board meeting, give you time to read all this and ask questions, and then we can go forward at that time. But this is the contract. The names are, say, Rutherford County Schools. It spells it out. And once we get final county approval, then we can lock in the interest rate to know what it is. But until that time, it's a range.
So the gentlemen are here. I don't want to put y'all on the spot, but the gentlemen are here, board members from the CMTA. Does anybody have any questions for them while they are here?
Did legal go through this, look at this contract?
They just got it. It's a standard contract. It's the same exact contract that you've already seen 2 or 3 times with other school districts' names on it, but it has been sent to Mr. Reed and to Monica.
And when are they going to be approving that?
I have no clue.
I would like to wait for them to look at it, legal go through it, Runyon look at it, look through the numbers before we sign off on it.
That's fine.
What I would like to recommend.
And Jeff, I know it's your firm. I believe the county's going to request Nick to look at it as well.
Is that 3.5% to 4.5%? Is that fixed?
Yes, it's fixed. We just don't know what the rate is until we can lock it in.
Lock it in.
That's why we had to do a range.
Sure.
But we feel fairly confident, unless the Fed does something nuts and goes up another 1.5. They stay in the 3/4 range. That range is probably okay.
Very good.
Don't give me an idea before our high school additions go out to bid, please.
Just, it is, I can't figure them out.
So will it be possible to table this until Runyon and legal go look at it and approve it?
They can look at it and approve it without the range of numbers, because it's the contract of who does what and how we justify it that's what legal's going to look at.
Then when will Brian approve it with a range of numbers so that we can know?
Yep.
And that the numbers match up and line up?
My recommendation is May 25th because we are in a time crunch to make sure our budget gets presented and approved to the county finance department by May 15th. So I would request that we table it till after we get the budget done.
Okay.
Do we table or we postpone?
Well,
Either one.
Because I
we
was
can bring it back to the
thinking that we
agenda.
were supposed, I just remember hearing we don't table, we postpone.
Postpone, what now?
Postpone.
Postpone, yes, we postpone, yes, just bring it back after it
You
goes
listen.
Brian and legal. That was,
Number 3.
Number 3, emergency request for football field lighting for Smyrna and Laverne High Schools. Engineers received pricing to replace poles and lights at Smyrna High School, $310,000, Laverne High School, $320,000. Due to the continued deterioration of the poles at both locations, staff would request to utilize the Sourcewell purchase plan and award the contract to Musco Lighting. Request not to exceed $650,000, utilizing ending fund balance of Fund 177. Materials are 10 to 12 weeks out at this time. And again, we have these projects at multiple places. We just happen to have them fail here.
I appreciate you,
Do we know?
because we have, they're not, lighting and poles are not good all across the.
No. And when they took out about 3 or 4 cars at Smyrna High School, do we know what that cost us for?
Cost for what?
The personal vehicles?
No, ma'am. The insurance will handle that and just take care of it with their insurance company.
Number 4.
All right, so number 4 is at a request of our county finance department. So engineering construction requesting to approve funding for architectural design services for the Beatty property. The request will be based on the anticipated construction costs shown in the 5-year plan and the firm design fees we presented to the board. Request is not to exceed $1.8 million for phase 1 design only. Do we actually, I think, and Brian, didn't we want to knock that down to $900,000 originally? Isn't that what we discussed? So this connects back with what we were moving money around just a second ago. So in order for the county to go to the bond market, they need to have an idea of what, and looking at the tax rate as well, looking at what the elementary school is going to cost. So we've been requested to go ahead and get architect just the initial design going so that we have an idea of what to ask for. And that is all we currently have the money for. So this also is a good show of faith because normally we pay for this out of the construction cost as part of the project, and we have enough funds to go ahead and pay for it ourselves.
As part of that process, in the packet that I left for you on your table, you have fees associated with this school for the design for the 2 architects that are currently approved by the board. Those fees, and it tells you what those design fees would be based on $50 million. One is the current contractor that is doing Oakland, Riverdale, and Smyrna, and the other contractor is our other contractor that's currently working for the county, building the new safety stations and fire hall. So you have you have 2 numbers in front of you that if we move forward and the construction cost is $50 million, that's what their fee would be.
And so for you,
Typically, we've kind of picked one and rode off into the sunset. But because this is a new school, most of you have not been on the board other than the additions, which were kind of already down the path before you got here. This is the first one that's kind of coming before you where you can see those 2 different numbers. We stay with the contractor who's done most of our work, or we go with the new contractor that we've selected for this year.
you can kind of see why do some of our amounts why do some of our schools look the same. So it is a financial cost savings for us. Staying with the current one you see is only, and I'll say it's only 3%, to where standard can be anywhere 6 is usually standard, correct, Trey? So you're looking at
And
6 for an
basically, the
architect.
other architects using state scale. So it's what the state, when the state bids, that's the way they bid it. That would be pretty much the standard for most architectural firms that would bid our work. It's going to be in that range, anywhere from 4.25% to 5%. Nobody's getting at the other number.
So the company that we normally use came in at 1.5 million, and the company that the county used came in at 2.6.
That's their fees, yes, that's what their fees would equate to, yes, sir, using the state standard fee.
No-brainer on my side.
Number 5.
All right, number 5 is a request for architectural service fees for 814 South Church Street. Request to be based on the anticipated construction renovation cost of $1.2 million. Anticipated use during phase 1 of this project for an additional alternative school to serve students in Rutherford County. You'll see that we're only asking for $50,000. Technically, if it's under $50,000, it doesn't require board approval, but because this could get close, I want to go ahead and get board approval.
Number 6.
And then number 6 is request for structural review of the proposed building purchase at 814 South Church Street. So engineering construction request a contract with Structural Design Group to provide a structural review for the building being proposed for purchase to verify structural integrity. Structural Designs Group has a long history of Rutherford County schools, and their fee is not to exceed $25,000. And Trey, you want to tell us what the actual fee is?
$1,500. I had to have a placeholder for tonight, so I knew it wouldn't be more than 25. They sent me their letter today. It's 1,500 is the actual number.
Well, that is great.
So again, not anything that requires board approval, but it's here, so at least everybody knows where we're going.
Number 16.
All right, so financial report, a couple things. So as mentioned, we are trying to make sure that, and we will only request the legal minimum maintenance of effort from our county funding body, and that is what we are going forward as far as our finance director and I am putting together departments. We are continuing to meet with department chairs. I know it's the salary study had a lot of conversation, but that is the biggest holdup for us right now because that is 75% of our budget. And for us to be able to put our budget together, that's what we need to know what numbers are. We will have those proposals to you, hopefully, Brian. We're trying to get, what's your target date of when we're trying to get the proposed 141, 143, 177, 189? To the board. I know what your target is, but.
Whatever the date that is that we're presenting it to them at the board meeting in May.
So we are hopefully having you those presentations. I believe it is May 10th and 12th, could be the 8th and 10th, whatever those Tuesdays, Thursdays are. We will have those proposals to you by the Friday before. That is our target deadline. May 15th is our drop dead deadline to have to the county commission's budget committee. For what our budget proposals are. We've talked a lot about them already. Fund 143 is self-contained. It's the one that is our school nutrition that we rely on USDA funds and meal charges and meal debt. So truly the raises are the only things that go into those. The 177 we've talked about, I'll be sending that to principals. Here's what we're looking at with our current funding amount. Where would you like to see if there's anything we need to make changes based on your requests? 141 is the big one to where, again, salaries, that's instruction necessarily related in our general purpose that we'll be looking at.
Can I ask, because I was coming in here and it dawned on me, weren't EEA supposed to get $1,000?
They will.
They're getting it.
SPED EAs, yes.
Thank you.
Yep, SPED EAs, that was part of last year's salary study. Instead of addressing the salary, it was $1,000. Yep. We don't know yet because it has to be hand calculated for each SPED EA.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, it's the honest truth, right, Brian? Every person will be handed, it'll probably be a separate check, we might guess. Yep. So last thing I wanted to add is just to give you an update. So we have surveyed all principals because I want to give an idea of where we are position-wise. We have, I had one school that didn't complete it, but we had 55 custodial position openings as of today. 68 support staff, so that could be front office to EAs of some sort. We have 56 unfilled teaching positions. I honestly thought it was going to be higher than that, so I'm pretty good with that considered. Where we have been saved, we have 132 retired teachers or teachers or on permits. And so that is, there are a couple things. Our retirees, and we love our permit teachers too, our retirees have classroom experience. Our permitted teachers do not. They have industry, so they are going to, when we talk about it, they're more likely to make a mistake because they've had no formal education training. So that is 132. To talk about next year, we are looking at 179 current openings. That's a couple hundred better than last year at this time, so We also don't know what the salary ranges of all the other districts around us are going to be. We're all kind of holding on to that with bated breath so that we don't compete with each other. But a couple things stood out, so I'm just going to read a couple of them. Kindergarten, 7 openings. First is 4, second 10, third 10, fifth grade's 11. Math, we have 24 openings. ELA 17, 6, 8 social studies and histories are 10 each. SPED is 15. ESL is currently only 6, but we have not filled several of our growth positions that we posted earlier in the year, and we're probably going to be requesting 17 just to get to the minimum. CTE is 11, foreign language is 5, and then the strange one is physical education. We have 9 physical education openings, so that is one that you didn't used to have a lot. All of that to say, I know for our principals who are looking at it from a day-to-day, these are the positions I have open. We're in a decent spot compared to where we were, but without our retirees, and I do want to thank our legislators, because without them allowing retirees to get both, and I think that goes on, do we know how many more years that is? Is it 2 to 3? 2? That has saved us. So without our retirees, we'd be in trouble. Oh, that is one more policy I would like to look for us, James, for a policy. We currently have a policy that our retirees are not allowed to accrue sick days.
Thank you, that's what I was about
Yes.
to ask.
Yep. They are not allowed to accrue sick days if they are retired and they come back to us. We already have those, that they're filling a filled teaching position, so they would
We need
be
to
earning
the
them.
same,
Yeah,
yes.
they need to be treated the same. Sorry, it just
About to
came
ask you
to
that.
me. I was like,
No,
whoa,
that's
as
all
I was
right.
talking
gonna
about
say,
it.
Refresh my memory.
Yep.
Because I know we had spoken about it before.
Excuse me, we do have a gap too now with our certified and classified, that they earn certain days that the other ones don't earn. Is that not a problem we've had as far as our office employees?
As far as working different days,
Well, having to use days, using time to take off when our teachers are off, our salaried folks.
yes, and so that is part of the salary study, is to put them in, or part of the salary recommendation is to put them every day that a teacher is supposed to be there. Now, what they won't get, teachers are paid 10 vacation days by state law. 5, I believe, are on winter break, and 5 are either spring break or fall break. Those won't be there, so EAs will be 190 days to where teachers are 200. I wish there was a way, the other part we've talked about with classified is figuring out a way to make their salary so that they were getting, or have their compensation, so they got a same amount every single month or every 2 weeks. I don't think we can do that because of wage and hour laws. So you can only pay them for the hours they are working, and when we are closed during December, I don't think we have the authority to go through and remove funds from them for the rest of the year when they've already worked it to cover those times. So that's a common question we get.
We have been working on trying to correct it.
We have.
Some way.
We have, and the only other thing I don't want to forget about was talking about pay. So when a teacher moves into Rutherford County, or any employee, they usually, if they start August 1st, don't get paid till September 20th. Our county finance director has a goal to try to make sure that teachers or employees, when they start, they get paid the same month they start. That is part of moving to this same pay system. I'm not sure that is going to happen by August, but that is our goal of what they're trying to do. And we greatly appreciate that, because when you have people start and they have to wait 7 weeks to get their first paycheck, that's rough. But that is the way we currently operate.
Are we looking into maybe moving it up to where they can get paid twice a month instead of just once a month?
So that'll be year 2 possibly. We would want to survey our faculty to see if that's something they truly want. I think it would help probably the county finance department, because right now they're running different payrolls every time that we have a different pay date, so.
I think a young teacher coming right out of school, broke from going to school, could use a check in 2 weeks instead of waiting 7 or 8 weeks, so.
So that's all I have for finance and directors.
You have an
I don't have
update
anything today.
Okay. General discussion. Anybody?
Yeah, I have a question. So I want to get clarity from something with the salary study. With reviewing the central office staff, and there is a decision not to change some of those salaries, would that mean that their pay scale will be to defer to the 20-year? Because it won't be a salary for them, a new pay scale. So there'll be some that will be in 25-year, and then some that will be on the 20-year, and they will not be getting a step in pay every subsequent year like this new salary study does. Is that a true statement, an accurate interpretation of that?
No, because the way that I understood Ms. Darby's request was certified staff was separate, then this was looking at central office
Right, so I'm
admin,
talking.
109 on.
Right, the central office. If some are not given the pay increases, does that mean they're not on that new pay scale? They're going to be deferred to the old pay scale?
They're not on a pay scale.
Huh?
They're not on a pay scale.
Right, so there's no pay
There's,
scale right
there's, no.
So how are they getting raises and how are they?
They'd get a percentage raise. So that's the way we've operated in the past. The governor's always given a percentage raise. We've in turn tried to get as close to that percentage raise as we could.
So how were the salaries even determined prior to today?
That's a good one. That's a good
I
one.
know you guys are laughing, but
No,
apparently
that's
we're having issues in determining what a pay scale is.
there was
And
no
we're having
rhyme or
issues
reason.
determining who is able to get a pay increase. So right now.
Our former
is
finance
there
directors and
2 year?
superintendents
So
discussed it.
how do they even know what the gap, where they cap off?
There is none.
They just pulled salaries out of the air. I don't know.
And I don't want to air the county's dirty laundry for too
So
long. but
basically,
yeah.
if we don't, so
Growing pains.
basically what's gonna happen is that those that don't get whatever, they're not going to have any incentivization because they're not gonna be getting those pay increases every year, just like you will be when you get a performance evaluation, you get a pay increase, like 1, 2, 3%. This new pay scale gives that. So we basically will have to go back to the third party to say, this is wrong, we have to pay more money because we didn't effectively clarify what the ask is, because right now, no one is gonna have a true pay scale if we redo it. There's no 25, this new pay scale is to get everyone at 25 years with a step increase. If we go back to saying who determines and doesn't determine, that is not included. So this whole study will have to go back to them to say, fix it, because we didn't ask correctly, because we don't have a pay scale for everybody. And it's not fair to those who are working on this job.
My suggestion at that point would be so my job is to propose a salary schedule in board policy and state law, and then the board approves or doesn't.
Right.
At that point, it would be for the board to make a scale or make a recommendation for a scale, because I need somewhere to place people.
Correct, but the way that it is, we won't be giving people the right amount.
It's been that way for decades. It is part, like you mentioned, it is part of our growing pains of trying to get this district to
Yeah,
where
it's a
it
mess.
needs to be. And I apologize, we have to have these uncomfortable conversations. Year one was, I'd like to tell you, year two will be a little bit easier, but year two is going to be zoning. So, I mean, us looking forward to zoning, it's like, hey,
Thanks a
this
bunch.
salary was fun, let's go to zoning next. I'm sorry, we've got some things we have to address.
So Thursday, the board is going, the members that can go are going to Opryland. Several of our schools, choirs, and different arts-related groups are going to be featured at is it the Tennessee? It's a professional development. I forget the acronyms. So several of us are going. Basically, Rutherford County is going to be the host county. And y'all, please forgive me for not telling everybody that's going to be there, but I believe Mr. Evans has that information it's on our website, who all's going. But Stewart's Creek Choir is going to be there, and they're going to be the only choir from the state of Tennessee. So we're all going, and we're going to be the host county, and it's going to be a fabulous event at Opryland. So everybody's looking forward to going. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Thank you. We are adjourned.